Porter, thank you so much for joining us here at FundForum International.
Thank you.
You can offer unique insights into what e-commerce has done, having been a VP at Alibaba. Tell me what you think the West can learn from what happened in China with e-commerce.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, one of my messages is that there seems to be a misperception in the West. People say Chinese are great imitators, but not great innovators. But I think what you're seeing is that because China is really starting from scratch, China is able to leapfrog way ahead, and so finally you're starting to see the evidence come out of China that there are true innovations coming out of China that even the Western leaders like Apple or Facebook are starting to even learn from and copy what's happening in China. So my message would be that there's a lot of innovation, it's fun to watch, and if you want to know the future of fintech, then the place to look would be China.
On a very practical level, you said you visited recently and you felt like a dinosaur was how you put it, because even just the way people pay for things in shops, I mean, describe that for me.
Right, well, so I've been traveling a lot talking about what's going on in China, but then when I go back, every time I start feeling a little less like I'm a young, hip tech guy and more like a dinosaur, because on my last trip back, I went to a Starbucks and everyone in line was using their mobile phone to pay, and I got up and tried to pay with a 100 renminbi bill. They looked at me like I'm crazy, why would I use cash? Then a couple blocks away, there's another store where they had a strict rule, they only accepted mobile payments, and I wasn't set up for it. And so even me, someone who helped build the tech economy in a small way there, if you leave for a year and come back, you'll find yourself really way behind the times.
And why do you think that's been able to happen in China?
I think a couple factors. First, China was coming from such a difficult period, closed off with communism, with so much poverty, that when the hand was lifted off the back of the population, people just rushed ahead and embraced new ideas all the time. I mean, here in Berlin, of course, you see that just in East Berlin, how quickly things changed. China is the whole country, and so when people are already used to change, you don't have to train them, oh, here's how you use a mobile phone to make payments. You don't have to get them to overcome some mental hurdle of how things have been done traditionally for hundreds of years. People are used to change, they embrace it, and so they adopt new ideas and begin using them much more quickly than in Germany or in the US.
You talked there about embracing change. That's something this industry has been looking at a lot in the last 5 years, being able to focus on fintech, how this industry might be disrupted. What can they learn?
Well, the first lesson I'd say is because when I was at Alibaba, we were in our first sort of wave, we were pioneering a lot of e-commerce against traditional retail. And you see there are really two types of businesses. There are the types that, traditional businesses that they see the change, they're paralyzed by fear, and all they can look at is all the possible downsides. And sometimes you talk to these people and you think, wow, this is someone who's really focused on what's going to go wrong. But the attitude to have and the people who survive and thrive are the ones that see all this change after many years of one way of doing things, and they see the opportunity. And so it's just more a mindset. Actually, this type of change is great. It offers so many opportunities to distribute services and get your products or funds in front of people. So the most important thing is just the mindset. And then when you have the mindset, not taking small incremental steps, think about how things are going to be in 10 years, and then work backwards from that and make the tough choices early.
Touching on that, you described e-commerce as an ecosystem. Is that what you're saying there, that this needs to be an end-to-end change? It needs to be a whole ecosystem?
Well, the way it's happened in China is exactly that, because there wasn't already a big physical retail, or there wasn't already a habit of using credit cards. And so China, it went very slowly. Basically, the trend is really in an emerging market, it takes longer for things to take off, but once they do, it's an overnight revolution and people jump from point A to point C right away. In a more developed country, it is a little more incremental because customers are used to a certain way, businesses are used to a certain way. And so I think what happens is things move a little more slowly, but you can't let that create complacency. Because what will happen is in 5 years you might be okay, in 10 years things have totally changed. So in terms of an ecosystem, there will be a new ecosystem in the West. It'll just be a more gradual thing. it won't happen as much overnight as it does in China or in India.
And do you see new players coming into this fund space who weren't traditionally here, the big Alibabas, Amazons of this world?
Well, it's funny you say that because when I started Alibaba, we were one of the new players, and now they're one of the giants. And one of the things I learned is that the big players always look intimidating, but they always have a lot of disadvantages you can't see from the outside. And so, yes, there will be new startups coming in to challenge, starting from scratch. I think in the finance world, it's a little tougher to just start from scratch because it's very important to have that trust and the customer relationships. But it is important for companies. If you're a traditional business, I would say set up on your senior management team an A team and a B team. And one is looking at the future of how you would build your company from who you are now for the next 10 years. The B team, pretend you're just starting from scratch with none of the legacy. You're almost an outside disruptor. How would you approach the business? Because that's what your competitors are going to be doing if you're a traditional business. So it's good to understand what's the happy medium between the legacy that you have where you want to go and what the competition will be like from these disruptors who are starting from scratch.
Fascinating and unique insights. Thank you so much for joining us, Porter. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.